I was haunted by a demon for almost 15 years. This one was submitted by Raising Spirits, and it has a lot of trigger warnings, so take that into consideration. It all started when my brother, father, and I moved into a house. It was a 3-story house with 2 apartments on each floor. The house was over 100 years old, but well renovated and right across the street from my new school. We were surrounded by a lovely park. All in all, it was an amazing place to grow up. I was about 5 or 6 at the time when I started noticing shadows in the corners of my eyes. This went on for about 10 years without me really realizing that it's not a normal eye thing. When I was young, I was extremely afraid of the dark, and for some reason, I always thought Batman was going to stand there when I opened my eyes and unalive me. I've always been sensitive to energies around me and the paranormal. So my guess is that I already sensed his presence, but I didn't know what it was yet. I was also dealing with depression and insomnia ever since I was young due to bad family stuff, but that may be relevant. When I got a little bit older, around 12, my mental issues started to worsen. My insomnia was pretty bad, and after I finished up high school, my sleep cycle was beyond repair. So I was usually awake at night and slept most of the day, or not at all. I was constantly sleep deprived. Weird stuff started to happen. Objects would often disappear and reappear after months. Stuff would randomly fall off of shelves. Harmless things, but I noticed it and it was odd. I started hearing voices yelling or whispering my name. It was the voices of my dad or brother at the time, but most of the time they weren't home or asleep. It got worse and fast. It was a long time ago, so I can't remember what order things happened in, but there were multiple auditory things going on. Gurgling sounds in the middle of our living room. Strange music awaking me at night and coming from the corner of my room. Then, to get more silent and disappear again, knocking on the walls, always 3 times. Horrible demonic screeches, mainly coming from the attic, which was right above our apartment. Sometimes it sounded like someone was throwing things around upstairs. Really loud rumbling in the middle of the night. By that time, I already knew my house was haunted, but I didn't know what it was yet. My neighbor and I started to investigate. We realized that she and her brother had been bothered by the same entity before, and they had a guest room that was mainly where it stayed at first. Ever since I lived there, I could not enter the room because the presence was overwhelmingly evil, almost like the air was crushing you. It was always the same feeling I had, and I had it 24/7 for about a year. That tingly feeling as if someone is standing right at your back. It's very uneasy, but I'm sure some of you know that feeling. So, I made the mistake and tried to communicate with it. I gave it a lot of attention thinking that it was a ghost, but that was my biggest mistake. Things got a lot worse very quickly and it completely attached to me because I was the perfect victim, a buffet of negative emotions, which I later learned was their main energy source to make them stronger. So one night I was looking at the shadow in the corner of my eye and I saw a black silhouette of a cat jump off my bed and then disappear in midair, evaporating like smoke. I jumped because I sensed something standing right behind me, and there it was, standing in full form. It was what many people call shadow people or hatmen. I'm sure there are many terms, but these shadowy figures are demons and can appear in various forms, often with glowing eyes or hat. Mine was blank. No face, hands, or feet. Not even a real head, but it was about 2 meters tall and it filled up the room in a dark, smoky shadow. It stared into my soul with non-existent eyes, just for a moment. I froze in shock, but as fast as it appeared, it disappeared again. After that, things got worse, so I did some research and found out what I was dealing with. I got obsessed. I didn't sleep and I didn't eat, and this was all I cared about. Then it started playing mind games with me, which was probably the peak of its haunting. Due to my depression and SI, I wasn't scared of many things. After that night, I would start to cry if the light bulbs would be off or if they would be half on, and I knew it used that information against me. It would shatter the light bulbs in our house about every 2 days or so. We weren't well off, so we didn't always get a new one immediately, and since I was awake at night, I had to deal with it. It was active during the day too, but when the clock hit 2 to 4 a.m., it was on. That's when it was the worst, and it was most active. One time, I walked into the kitchen, and before I could turn on the lights, I stood on something that felt weird. I turned on the lights to find out that the floor was crawling with maggots. Every inch was covered with them. I was shocked, grossed out, and totally panicked. I tried to shovel them and put them in the trash, basically crying through the entire thing. Somehow, they disappeared into the walls after a few minutes. Was this my imagination? One time, I talked to it all day, just speaking into the air because I could feel its presence, just hoping that it would let me sleep one night. I remember saying to it something like, "I gave you attention all day, so can you at least help me out and let me sleep?" The energy in the room suddenly got really aggressive, and I felt something choking me for a few minutes. That was the one and only physical attack I ever experienced. I don't think it wanted to physically harm me because that would be counterproductive. I believe it set out to break me mentally. Basically, I was an exhausted wreck because I spent my nights fighting off a demon. This whole experience was extremely traumatizing, like living in a horror movie. Besides my friends that lived in the same house, no one else believed me. My dad didn't take me seriously, and my brother knew stuff was going on, but he was scared, so he decided to ignore it and leave me alone with it. I'm going to add this for people that may be suffering with the same type of apparition or demon. These are some signs that you might be dealing with a demon. Shadows in the corner of your eye, apparitions. This includes the famous sleep paralysis figure. Knocking 3 times. Extreme tense energy like the room is going to crush you. And a strong feeling of being watched. Other signs that might occur more frequently than usual: very negative thoughts, nightmares, and sleep paralysis. If you experience any of the things that I mentioned, do not engage with it. Just ignore it or pretend that you didn't notice it, and try not to be scared. They did get tested for schizophrenia and psychosis and have none of those features. Even the psychiatrists were slightly speechless about it. Are you suffering with any of these types of paranormal occurrences? Do you believe that this demon has sinister intentions? Let me know in the comments. Thanks everyone for watching today, and as always, stay safe out there.